Today, let's recreate the Loki intro sequence. I firmly believe that the best way to master Fusion is to take reasonably complex projects, try to break them down and recreate so that it takes you out of your comfort zone. It'll make you think of ways to solve problems that you may not be facing in your day-to-day projects. Now, this is the original Loki intro sequence. This sequence is exactly 400 frames in length. And if you scrub through from the beginning, you'll notice that there is a font change that happens every 10th frame. And this font change occurs until frame number 320, at which point of time the master fonts, the logo fonts, are displayed once. There is an explosion of light, as you can see here, and then these master fonts stay for the remainder of the animation, but there is a minor camera shake at every letter. So this is kind of the breakdown of what's going on, and now let's try to reproduce it. The way I'm going to approach this is I'm going to do two Fusion compositions. One composition for where the font changes every 10th frame. So that is from frame 0 to frame number 320. And I'm going to use another Fusion composition between frame 320 to frame 400 for the last 80 frames. So my timeline is 24 frames per second. In the edit page, let's create a new Fusion composition and bring it in. And here, I'm only going to take it for 32 frames. It's going to be a relatively short composition for 32 frames, and I'll explain why later. Let's bring in 4 text nodes, one for each character. So this is going to be my L, this is going to be my O, this is going to be my K, and this is going to be my I. I'm just going to use these as my base characters. The idea here being that if you want to change the character at any time in the future, you can do it. We might not be doing it in this particular animation, but it's a good practice to have. Next, let's create the Ls. Now, I told you that there are 32 font changes because there are 320 frames and there's a font change every 10th frame, so 32 font changes. You could create 32 versions of the Ls and 32 versions of the Os, but I'm just going to do it 6 times and I'm going to reuse the same fonts across the animation. But if you feel like it, go and do it 32 times. This is my first node for the L. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pin this, go back to text 5 so that I can have the pin down here, right click, expression, take the whip and connect it. So I'm looking for text 1 style text. What I've just done is I've connected text 5 to text 1. So if I bring text 1 to the first monitor and text 5 to the second monitor, you'll see that they both have L in it. If I go back to the text 1 and I change it to something else, text 5 also changes. So that's what the whip does. So let's go back to L. So text 5 is now connected to text 1. I would also like to go here and then start picking a random font. That looks nice. Now we need to duplicate these font changes 5 more times because I want 6 fonts. So copy text 5 and instead of doing a paste, do a Ctrl-Shift-V. This will give you an instance node. What an instance node does is that it will retain the values of text 5. So in the future, if you want to make a change to text 5, the same changes, the areas highlighted in green here, those values will automatically carry over to any instance node. So in instance text 5, I want all values of text 5 to carry over except for the font value. I want a different font. So to do that, right click where the font is and choose de-instance font group. Once you've done that, every parameter except the font group is now tied to text 5, but instance text 5 has its own font choice. So now choose instance text 5 and change the font. And now simply redo exactly that 4 more times. I've duplicated this 4 more times and I've created a different font for each of these nodes. So those are your 6 versions of your Ls. Now the next thing to do is we don't need all 6 fonts to be present on the output at the same time, right? We need to choose between one of those fonts every frame. Now, every time you see a node structure like this, the first thought to combine these nodes would be to bring the merge node in. So something like, say like this. The issue with the merge node is that the merge node is used to layer one node's output on top of another node's output. So if I bring merge 1 into monitor 2, you'll see that both the Ls are present at the same time, and that's not quite what we want. We want either the L from text 5 or instance text 5 to be present at any given time. So in order to do that, the node you would use is not the merge node. The node you would rather use is called the dissolve node. So let me bring in the dissolve node. Now what the dissolve node would do is, depending on the background foreground value here on the right, if the value is 1, it'll pick the foreground node. And if I were to move the slider all the way to 0, you'll see that the other L is now displayed. So what that tells us is, if the value of the dissolve node is 0, then it picks the input coming from the background. And if the value is 1, it picks the input that's coming from the foreground, the green input here. Now this is kind of what we want, but the challenge with the dissolve node that we have is that if there is an intermediate value, you'll see both the inputs being displayed and they dissolve from one input to the other. Now this is quite not what we want. We want either a 0 or a 1. We do not want to handle intermediate values. So to solve that, what we can do is we can use expressions. If this video has been helpful in any way, please hit the like button and leave a comment and tell me how you enjoyed it. If it has not been helpful, please also tell me how I can improve the next time. So right-click on the background foreground slider, choose expression and type this expression here. If math.random is less than 0.5, then 0, else 1. What this piece of code is doing is you're asking Resolve to generate a random number between 0 and 1. And if that random number is less than 0.5, you're asking it to make that random number 0. And if the value is above 0.5, you're asking it to make that value 1. Which means that at any point of time, the value is going to be either 0 or 1. So if I scrub through, you'll see that the value here becomes 0 or 1 at any given time. So only one of the two letters is chosen at any given point of time, which is exactly what we want. This dissolve node is able to choose between text5 and instance text5, any one of the inputs. We need to do the same thing for the remaining. So let's copy this dissolve node, do an instance paste, and connect these two. Another instance paste, and connect these two. And we need to keep going. Another instance paste, and connect these two. The idea here is that at the end of it, we just want one L to be chosen. Now, with this structure, if I were to bring this instance node's output into monitor 2, you'll see that as I scrub, depending on the random values generated by these 5 dissolve nodes, a random L is chosen every frame. Now what we want to do is we want to duplicate this, and now I want to change this to be my O's. So I'm going to choose this, and instead of text1.styletext, I'm looking at text2 because text2 is my O. So I'm going to change this to text2.styletext. That makes it the O, you can see here. I'm going to bring this into monitor 1, and I'm just going to replace every instance as well with an O. And now if I bring this instance dissolve into monitor 2, you'll see that a random O is generated every frame. Do the same thing for your K's and your I's. Now once you've repeated it for your L's, O's, K's and I's, just go ahead and group them for easy management. So that's your, I'm going to rename this. So that's your L. Group them using Control G and then rename them using F2. So that's your O. Cool. So these are your 4 characters that are randomly generated every frame. We need to combine these 4, and I'll use a multi-merge node to combine them. Node 1 is now incorrectly connected to the background. I actually need a background node as well. So let me bring in a background node. I'll connect the background node to the background input, the yellow one, and I'll connect the L to the white input. Let me bring in the original Loki animation for reference. Let's put it in media 1 here. Bring this into media 1. And I just want to get the background color correct. So with the background selected, with the color picker, let's just go here and choose the background color so that it's correct. Yep, I think that's okay. Cool. Hopefully what I've done so far is clear. So I've gotten the multi-merge to connect to the background node as well as all the 4. I'm going to bring the multi-merge into monitor 2. And you can see that what the multi-merge has now done is that it's placed all the 4 inputs in the middle. That's not quite what we want. We want them to be spread out because you want to see the L, O, K, I being displayed correctly. In order to do that, I'm going to bring in a transform node after the L and start positioning them correctly. So let's move the center, maybe there. Another one here. Move the center. Move the center. Cool. And you can see, you can already see the effect coming through, right? There is a change in font every frame. If you go back to the edit page, and I'll look at the original, you'll see that there's a glow around the edges of every text. So let's do that next. You can create a glow by adding a soft glow, decrease the gain, increase the glow. So something like this. If you go back to the edit, you will notice that the edges of the font is not very sharp. It's a bit blurry. And we can achieve that by adding a blur node, a Gaussian blur node for every text. So what I'll do is, okay, cool. So that looks good. The next thing, if you go back to the original, is you'll notice that there is some sort of a grunginess here going on. And the other thing is the font kind of seems to shake its position every single time. There's a camera shake going on. So let's bring that in next. So after the soft glow, I'm going to add a camera shake node. And in the camera shake, it's a little too much now. So let's bring the overall strength down somewhere here, and the speed low as well, and the randomness low as well. Cool. And I'm just going to copy this contour camera shake and add it to every node here. I suppose the other thing that we're missing right now is in the reference, even the glow kind of changes between frames. So you'll see that the L has a lower glow than the O, but in the next frame, the L has higher glow. So let's maybe work on that as well. So go back to Fusion and choose the soft glow node. And in the glow size, what we can do is we can see that a number between, say, a 10 and a 30 seems all right. So maybe I can write an expression here and say that 30 minus 10 into math.random plus 10. This formula will now give me a value in every frame between 30 and 10. So that's what that formula will do. So I'm just going to copy this formula and add it to the other soft glow nodes as well. I've downloaded a grain pack. So I'm going to use one of these grain packs here. Maybe this one. I'm going to add it to the background node. I get all my assets from Envato Elements. As a subscription service, it's of huge value to me because I can get Davinci templates, stock overlays, stock videos, music, and sound effects with just one subscription. And for me, that's incredible value for money. And the link to Envato Elements is in the description below. And in the merge, let me reduce the blend really low, something like that. And maybe also make the apply mode screen. So you have something like looks like this. Maybe the blend is a little too high. Let me reduce that even further. And the other one I want to do is also add a grain node. And you can play with the grain size and the grain softness. Now I'm also going to bring another grunge pack that I've downloaded. With the merge 2 selected, reduce the blend and apply mode, play around with it, right? See what works for you. So maybe that kind of works for me. The other thing I've noticed is that the original animation has a hint of a greenish color where the O's look. So look at it, it's a bit of a green color going on here. So I want to bring that green in. In Fusion, after the multi-merge, I'm going to add a color corrector. And in the color corrector, I'm just going to push this towards the greens, just tip it. Not too much, just a hint, something like this. The next thing you'll notice in the original is that the animation kind of zooms in slowly. So I'm going to do that next. So go back to Fusion. After this color corrector, let's add another transform node. And with the size keyframed all the way from the start to the end, let's just increase the size. So you have something that looks like this. So this is going to work for our first 320 frames. We still have 80 frames at the end, which is the hero frames. The difference between the hero frames and the initial frames is that the font does not change in the hero frames. You need the master Loki fonts present there. Now I've gone ahead and downloaded those fonts, and you can find the fonts in the description below. What we'll do is go back to the edit page, duplicate the Fusion composition that we just created, but I'm going to reduce this down to 8 frames only. because I need 80 frames, and then I'm going to stretch those 8 frames to 80 frames. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's it. That's all that I need. So I'm going to cut this down and bring this composition into Fusion. Now, in this case, I also want to remove these L's, and I want to only retain a single font. So let's just do something like this. So the fonts to use are, for the L, you use US Angel. For the O, you use Old English Text Empty. For the K, you use ARB85 poster script. And for the I, you use Cloister Black. What I also notice is that the camera shake seems to be exactly the same for each of these, and I don't like that. So go into each camera shake node and just change the randomness of each of those so that they seem to move independent of every other thing. Yeah, that's okay. So now what we have is, we have 2 Fusion compositions, one that is 38 frames in length and the other that is 8 frames in length. So let me create 2 exports. So I'm just going to call this export 1. Cool. Now come back to the next one, do the same thing, deliver, add to render queue, render. Bring in export 1, and I'm going to retime this to 10%. And if I look at it, and then bring in export 2, and then retime this as well to 10%. And now if you play them together, now all that's left is to add the music. So let's drag in the sound. I had loads of fun doing this, and here is a Netflix animation tutorial that I did a couple of weeks ago, which I think you will also enjoy. So go ahead and watch that next. Bye.